My name is Eleanor May Johnson, though most people call me Miss Ellie. I'm 83 years old, and for the first time in my long life, I feel the weight of every year pressing against me. These days, I live alone in a small, weather-worn house at the edge of Mobile, Alabama. The paint is peeling, the porch sags when you step on it, and the wind whistles through the cracks in the windows. But it's mine, paid for. The last thing in this world that belongs only to me. Most days, I keep to myself. I drink weak coffee in the morning, tend to my roses when the heat allows, and spend evenings humming the old hymns Mama once sang to me. People in town know me as the sweet old widow who gives out pies at church. They see the soft hands, the polite smile, the quiet voice. What they don't see, what I've never told anyone, is the story behind the scars hidden beneath my sleeves, or the secret I've carried for nearly 70 years. It was just after midnight when it happened. The sound of fists hammering against my front door startled me awake. Not the polite knock of a neighbour, not the hesitant tap of a lost child, but hard, angry pounding that rattled the glass in its frame. I froze in bed, my heart thundering in my chest. At my age, people don't come calling at that hour, unless it's bad news. Or trouble. Slowly, I pulled my robe tight around me and shuffled down the hallway. The knocking grew louder, more urgent, until I feared the door would break off its hinges. I pressed my eye to the peephole, expecting to see a policeman, or maybe a drunk neighbour. But instead, I saw a face I thought I'd buried long ago. It was him. And the moment our eyes locked through the glass, I knew the past I had fought so hard to escape had finally found its way back to my doorstep. For a moment, I thought my mind was playing tricks on me. At 83, memories blur and faces slip away, but not this one. No, this face had haunted my dreams for decades. His eyes were older now, sunk deep into their sockets. But they were the same cruel eyes that had once stared me down across a kitchen table, whiskey in hand. My father. He'd been dead nearly 40 years, or so I thought. I stumbled back from the door, clutching my chest. My breath came in short, ragged gasps as the pounding continued. "Eleanor," the voice growled, rough and familiar. "Open this door." Every instinct screamed to run, but where? My house was small, no back exit he couldn't find. Besides, my legs weren't what they used to be. Even if I tried, I couldn't outrun the ghost that had come knocking. I pressed my palms against the cool plaster of the wall, trying to steady myself, and memories I'd buried deep came flooding back. I was 7 years old again, standing in our little kitchen in Birmingham. Mama was gone, and Daddy's rage had become the air I breathed. His voice, always sharp, his hand, always heavy. The night he first struck me, the night he nearly traded me away like cattle, the nights I prayed to God to take him before he took me, and now here he was, or someone wearing his face. The knocking stopped suddenly, replaced by silence so heavy it pressed against my ears.
Your time's up, Songbird.
My knees nearly gave out. That nickname, Mama's name for me, twisted in his mouth like a curse. I backed into the living room, reaching for the old rotary phone on the side table. My trembling fingers barely found the receiver when the doorknob rattled violently. The phone slipped from my grip and clattered to the floor. Then came the sound I feared most, wood splintering. He was coming in. The crash shook the whole frame, and splinters flew like shrapnel across my living room rug. I staggered backward, clutching the arm of my recliner for balance. For an instant, my eyes blurred, and I swore I saw him, my father, stepping through that broken door. But when my vision cleared, the man standing there wasn't the towering figure from my childhood. He was thinner, older, his shoulders stooped. His hair, what little of it was left, was white as ash. And yet, those eyes, cold, heavy, unforgiving.
I told you, Songbird, he rasped. You can't hide forever.
My breath caught in my throat. "You," I whispered, "you died." The room tilted. My heart pounded against my ribs, begging me to collapse. Instead, my mind fled backward in time, desperate to escape. Birmingham, 1951. I was 11 years old. The night Daddy first hit me still burned in my memory like a brand. The sting of his palm, the scorch of the stove against my back, the silence afterward, the kind that told me it would happen again, and again, and again. After that night, I learned to live like a shadow. I became an expert at listening for the creak of floorboards, the slosh of liquid in his glass, the tightening of his jaw that meant a storm was coming. I could measure the danger in every flicker of his eyes. But no matter how careful I was, the punishments came. Sometimes a slap, sometimes worse. Sometimes words so sharp they cut deeper than any blow. And through it all, I clung to Mama's memory, to her lullabies, her whispered promise that I was meant for more. She called me Songbird, said my voice would carry me far. But when Daddy spat that same name, it became a weapon. A reminder that even my mother's love could be twisted. Now, here he was, 70 years later, dragging that cursed name back into my home like a knife reopening an old wound.
But before I could find the strength, the man in my doorway took another step closer and smiled. You thought burying me would be enough?
I gripped the edge of the recliner until my knuckles whitened. My father had been dead for decades. I'd seen the casket lowered, the dirt shoveled over, yet here he was, older, frailer, but with the same voice that had once reduced me to silence. "Who are you?" I managed, my voice trembling.
Songbird always knows.
The word cut me open. It yanked me back to a night in 1953. I was 12, curled up on a mattress so thin it might as well have been the floor. My back ached from fresh burns, my cheek swollen from his hand. Through the thin walls, I could hear Daddy's boots pacing the kitchen. Then his voice, low and venomous. "Your mama thought she was better than her place. Don't you make the same mistake, girl, or you'll end up like her." That warning, half threat, half confession, was the first time I suspected Mama's death wasn't an accident. It became the question that haunted me, the one truth I never dared to chase. And now this stranger, this living ghost, stood before me, speaking with the same poisoned tongue. I forced strength into my voice. My father is dead.
And yet here I am.
The room grew colder, the air heavy. I thought of the phone lying useless on the floor, the neighbours too far to hear. I thought of Mama's Bible on the shelf, its pages worn thin by my hands. I thought of every scar I'd carried since childhood. I wasn't a child anymore. If you came here to finish what you started, you'll find I'm not so easy to break. My legs trembled beneath me, but I forced myself not to collapse. I stared at him. This stranger with my father's voice, my father's eyes, and yet not him at all. "What did you just say?" My voice cracked, thin as paper. He stepped further inside, the broken door hanging crookedly behind him. "You've lived your whole life with questions, Songbird. Questions about that staircase, about why she fell, about why no one was ever punished." My throat closed. The Montgomery house, the polished banister, Mama's scarf tied neat over her hair. That was the day everything ended. The official story was an accident, but deep in my bones I'd always known better. I backed up until my calves hit the sofa. "Who are you? How do you know about Mama?" He lowered himself slowly into the chair across from me, like he belonged here. His hands shook as he folded them, spotted with age, the skin paper-thin. His voice dropped to a whisper. "Because I was there, Elena. I saw it with my own eyes." The room spun. My vision blurred. A rush of childhood memories came flooding back. The hushed conversations of neighbours, the sideways glances, the words I wasn't supposed to hear. "She didn't fall. She was pushed." "You're lying," I said, though my voice lacked conviction.
He leaned forward, his face shadowed. "I know the truth your father took to his grave, and you deserve to hear it before you follow him." A chill crawled up my spine. Before I follow him, his gaze locked on mine, unwavering. Because the past doesn't stay buried, Songbird, and neither will you.
My hand groped blindly for Mama's Bible on the side table, clutching it to my chest like a shield. My heart hammered so hard I thought it would shatter me from the inside. "You came all this way," I whispered, my voice shaking, "to tell me a truth, or to finish what he started." For the first time, his eyes softened. He sighed, almost weary. "That depends on how much of the truth you can stand to hear." The man's words hung in the air like smoke, suffocating and impossible to ignore. I was there. I clutched Mama's Bible so tightly my fingers ached. My mind screamed to throw him out, to slam the door and bolt it shut, even if it was hanging by splinters. But another voice, deep inside me, whispered, "You've waited your whole life for answers." "Talk," I said, my voice hard despite the quiver in my chest. "If you know something about Mama, say it plain."
His eyes flickered. Pain, regret, maybe shame. Your father wasn't the one who killed her. The words hit me like a blow. For 70 years I had carried the quiet, gnawing belief that Daddy had done it, that his rage finally boiled over, and Mama had paid the price. But now, this stranger was unspooling a different story.
I shook my head, tears stinging. "No, don't you dare play games with me." He leaned closer, lowering his voice. It was the lady of the house, Mrs. Montgomery. She pushed her. My breath caught, my stomach lurched. The room around me seemed to dissolve, and suddenly I was back in 1947. Mama's dress crisp and clean, the one she wore only for work. The way she kissed my forehead that morning. "Be good for your daddy, Songbird. I'll be home before the stars come out." But the stars came and went, and she never did. The funeral, her coffin too small for the size of her love, my father standing like stone. And the whispers, oh, the whispers that followed me everywhere. She didn't fall. She was pushed. I snapped back to the present, my throat raw. "You expect me to believe you? After all these years, some old man shows up at my door claiming he knows the truth." His expression didn't change. Because I was standing at the bottom of that staircase. I saw it happen. And I've lived with that memory every single day since. The room fell into a suffocating silence. I could hear the tick of the clock on the mantel, the rattle of the wind through the broken door. Finally, I whispered, "Why now? Why tell me after all this time?" He didn't answer right away. He just stared at me, those haunted eyes unblinking. And then he said something that made the blood drain from my face. "Because Mrs. Montgomery's family knows the truth too, and they've come looking for you." His words hollowed out the room. The Montgomery family, still alive, still circling like wolves after 70 years. I pressed Mama's Bible harder against my chest, as if leather and ink could shield me from ghosts. My breath shook. "You need to start talking sense. Who are you?"
The man's jaw tightened. His gaze dropped to his hands, gnarled, trembling. For a moment I thought he wouldn't answer. Then he spoke, slow and heavy, like every word cost him something. "My name is Samuel Rivers."
I searched his face, waiting for the recognition to hit. Nothing. No memory, no connection. Just a name as plain as dust. "I don't know you," I said. "You wouldn't," he admitted. "But I knew her, your Mama. I worked the grounds at Montgomery's estate. I was just a boy when it happened. 17. Too young to stop it. Old enough to remember." My throat tightened. Images flickered in my mind. Mama's scarf tied neat, her smile as she bent down to hug me before work. The way she looked back at the door, almost as if she knew it might be the last time. "Why didn't you say something then?" My voice cracked. Anger flared up in me, sharp as broken glass. "Why didn't you tell the police? Why didn't you stand up?"
Samuel's eyes filled with something I couldn't name. Regret, maybe. Fear. Because I was colored, Ellie. a poor field boy in Alabama in 1947. If I'd opened my mouth, they would have buried me beside her.
The silence after that was a weight too heavy for my old lungs. He was right. I knew he was right. Still, the fury in me wouldn't die. So you let me grow up thinking my daddy was a murderer. You let me carry that poison in my heart for a lifetime. His lips pressed tight. He didn't defend himself. He didn't try to ease my pain. He just nodded once, like a man accepting a sentence he'd known was coming all along.
Finally, his voice broke through the stillness. I can't undo what I did or what I didn't do, but I can help you now, because the Montgomerys, they don't forgive, and they don't forget.
A cold shiver ran through me. Help me how? Samuel leaned forward, his shadow spilling across the floor. His voice dropped to a near whisper. By telling you what they're planning, and why your mama died for real. The storm outside rattled the window panes, but the storm inside me was louder. My whole body trembled, equal parts fury and fear. Say it, I demanded, my voice low, almost a growl. Say what they did to her.
Samuel's eyes glistened in the dim light. Your mama, she wasn't just a maid. She saw something, heard something she wasn't meant to. That's why Mrs. Montgomery pushed her.
The words sank into me like ice water. My stomach twisted. What could she have possibly seen? His hands shook as he rubbed his temples, like a man dragging memories out of a locked chest. There was a ledger, he whispered. Hidden in Mr. Montgomery's study. Names, dates, payments. Deals with men who would slit your throat just for looking at them wrong. Smuggling, trafficking, bribes to judges, sheriffs. Your mama. She found it. I think she meant to take it to the police. My heart stopped. Mama. My gentle, God-fearing mama. Brave enough to stand against monsters. I clutched her Bible tighter. Maybe it wasn't just scripture she left me. Maybe there were truths tucked between its pages I'd been too blind to see.
Samuel's voice grew hoarse. Mrs. Montgomery caught her near the study. They argued. And then, your mama was at the top of those stairs. I was at the bottom carrying wood. I saw it all. Saw her fall. Heard her neck snap like kindling. I closed my eyes, the sound ringing in my ears as if I'd been there too. My chest heaved with ragged breaths. When I opened them again, Samuel was staring at me, haunted, broken. They buried it as an accident, paid off anyone who asked too many questions. And me? I kept my mouth shut because silence was the only thing that kept me alive.
The clock ticked on the mantel, each second struck like a hammer. Finally, I found my voice. It came out sharp, fierce, older than my bones. So why now? Why after all these years? Samuel's jaw clenched. He leaned closer, whispering so low I almost couldn't hear. Because the Montgomerys lost that ledger, and they think you have it. The house had gone too quiet. Even the storm outside seemed to hold its breath. They think you have it. The ledger, the proof, the reason Mama died. I set Mama's Bible on my lap, my fingers brushing the edges of its worn leather cover. That book had been my anchor for nearly a century. It held her scent, her touch, her voice in the margins. But now I wondered, had it also held her secret? I flipped through trembling pages, Psalms and Proverbs rustling under my fingers. Samuel watched me in silence, his face pale and drawn. Then, something. A thin seam, not quite right. My fingertips snagged at the back cover. The binding bulged just enough to make me pause. Heart pounding, I pried it open. There it was. A slit in the leather, careful but deliberate. And inside, slipped between the backboard and the cover, an envelope yellowed with age. Lord have mercy. But before I could pull it free, a sound froze me in place. Not at the door, it was already broken. No, this came from the side window, 3 sharp raps. I clutched the Bible to my chest, the envelope pressing against my palm like a heartbeat.
Ellie, listen to me. Whatever's in that envelope, it's why they killed your mama. It's why they'll kill you.
I forced myself to my feet, my old bones screaming. My voice came out steady, sharper than I expected. Then we better make sure they don't get it.
Get to the back room.
But I didn't move. My eyes locked on the figure stepping into my living room. He wasn't old money like the Montgomerys. No, this was hired muscle. Black jacket, leather gloves, face cold as stone.
Evening, Miss Ellie. You've got something that don't belong to you.
This book belonged to my mother, and I'll die before you lay a finger on it.
That can be arranged.
You'll go through me first.
You think I won't?
I backed against the wall, my heart hammering. My old body couldn't fight them, not with fists. But I'd fought my whole life with something stronger. Stubbornness, grit, faith. Listen to me. You think killing me will silence the truth. That ledger doesn't die with me. You hear? It will outlive every one of you. The others advanced toward me. My hand fumbled at the side table drawer, praying, begging, and there it was, cold steel under my fingers, Mama's Bible in one hand, my late husband's revolver in the other. I lifted the gun, my arms shaking but steady enough to aim. Step any closer, and you'll find out just how much fight this old body's still got. The room reeked of fear and sweat. Glass crunched underfoot. The intruders circled like predators, eyes locked on the gun trembling in my hands. I said, "Step closer and you'll regret it."
Go, get the envelope.
The envelope, Mama's legacy. My fingers itched to clutch it, to run, but my feet felt cemented. Not from fear, but from a lifetime of standing up when I was told I was too small, too weak, too old. I fired. The crack of the revolver echoed like thunder in the small room. The man yelped, staggering back. My aim had been true. Outside, the rain had soaked the yard. Cold water ran down my face, but adrenaline made me feel alive, younger than my 83 years. Samuel kept pace, muscles taut as we dove behind the hedges. Where do we go?
Not far, I know a place. Safe for now.
I have it, I have her truth.
Then they can't touch it, and they won't touch you, not if we do this right.
The storm raged on, rain pouring, lightning illuminating the darkened street. I realized something profound. My fight wasn't just about survival anymore, it was about justice, for Mama, for every wrong that had gone unpunished, and it was far from over. We huddled in Samuel's small apartment, the rain still hammering the streets outside. I sat on the edge of the couch, the envelope on my lap, hands trembling as I slowly peeled it open. Inside were pages of fragile yellowed paper, scribbled in Mama's delicate handwriting. Names, dates, locations, a web of corruption that stretched further than I could have imagined. The ledger detailed everything: bribes, illegal dealings, even people who had disappeared under suspicious circumstances. I swallowed hard. Mama had known the danger, and she had tried to protect me by hiding this truth. The weight of it pressed down on me, heavier than any punishment Daddy had ever delivered.
You see why they came for you. This isn't just about revenge. This is about control. If the ledger gets out, it destroys them, and they've spent decades making sure it never will.
My fingers traced the names, some familiar, some I'd never heard. Every page whispered of fear, deceit, and courage. And through it all, Mama's hand guided me, even from beyond the grave. "I can't believe she trusted me with this," I whispered, tears blurring the ink. All those years, all the pain. And she left me the key to justice.
And now you have to finish what she started, but it won't be easy. They'll come for you again, and next time they won't hold back.
I pressed the ledger to my chest, My heart pounded, not with fear, but with resolve. Then we'll be ready. Outside, the storm began to fade, but a new tension settled in the air. The Montgomerys would strike, and this time we wouldn't be running. We spent the night poring over the papers, plotting a way to expose decades of lies. Every detail mattered. Every name was a weapon. And as dawn broke, I realized that for the first time in my life, I wasn't just surviving. I was preparing to fight back. Mama had given me more than love. She had given me the truth, and I would wield it. The day was grey, clouds hanging low over the city like a warning. I clutched Mama's ledger beneath my coat, feeling its weight as a talisman. Samuel walked beside me, silent but alert. Every step toward the Montgomery estate felt like walking into a storm I couldn't control. We parked a block away and approached on foot, careful, deliberate. The sprawling white mansion glinted in the weak morning light. Perfect, pristine, untouched by the years of darkness it concealed. My stomach tightened. I could feel their presence before we even reached the gate. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of polished wood and arrogance. Mr. Montgomery's eldest son, Richard, waited at the top of the grand staircase, arms crossed, expression sharp and cold. His eyes landed on me, narrowing.
So, you're the little girl who's been hiding in plain sight all these years. Did you really think we forgot?
I held my chin high. I'm not the little girl you used to threaten, and I'm not hiding. He laughed, a short, clipped sound, but it didn't reach his eyes. Behind him, Mrs. Montgomery appeared, older, but still commanding, her posture rigid. "Hand over the ledger, Eleanor," she demanded. "It belongs to us. You've no right to it." "I have every right," I said firmly. "And I'm not giving it to anyone who killed my mother." Samuel stepped beside me, placing a hand on my shoulder. "We came to settle this," he said, voice steady, "and we're not leaving without answers." Richard's hand twitched, as if he wanted to strike, but he stopped. He knew, somehow, that this was different. That the woman before him wasn't the frightened girl who had run barefoot through Birmingham streets decades ago. Mrs. Montgomery's voice cut through the tension like a knife. "You'll regret this. We control everything, Eleanor. Everything." I drew a deep breath, glancing down at the ledger tucked into my coat. Each name, each secret, each injustice screamed for justice. I realized in that moment that fear had no hold over me, not anymore. "You don't control me," I said louder this time, "and the truth, my mother's truth, never belonged to you, and it never will." For a heartbeat, the room was still. Then a servant rushed past, the front doors slammed, and the first move was made. The room pulsed with tension, every polished surface reflecting our movements like a trap. I felt the ledger's weight under my coat, its edges pressing into my ribs, a reminder of my mother's courage, my own, and the stakes of the moment. Richard stepped forward, fingers twitching, jaw tight. "You think you can walk in here and threaten us with some old papers? You're playing a dangerous game." I planted my feet firmly. "No, I'm finishing a game that started long before I was born. My mother played it first. You lost." Mrs. Montgomery's eyes narrowed, cold as ice. "You know nothing about power, Eleanor. We've survived worse than you. You will regret this." I didn't flinch. Samuel shifted beside me, ready to intervene, but I held up a hand. This wasn't just about force. It was about exposure, about truth, about the moral leverage Mama had left me. "Expose what?" I asked, my voice steady. "The deals, the names, the lies. You thought hiding it for decades would erase it. You thought my silence would last forever." Richard's face twisted in fury. He lunged, knocking a chair aside, aiming for the ledger. I ducked, swinging the Bible like a shield. The pages rustled, and the corner of the envelope peeked out, still safe. Mrs. Montgomery hissed, "Stop her!" The next minutes were a blur of motion. Samuel tackled Richard, wrestling him to the floor. I darted across the room, feet skidding over the slick marble. My revolver felt heavy but familiar. a talisman against their decades of terror. I reached the grand desk where the Montgomerys kept the original ledger's duplicates. My hands shook as I rifled through drawers, scanning papers until, yes, another envelope. My heart leapt. Evidence, proof, justice waiting for me to claim it. Richard broke free, charging. I fired a warning shot into the ceiling. The crack echoed like thunder, shaking the walls. I said, "Back off." Mrs. Montgomery froze, shock flickering across her composed mask. "You," she began, but I cut her off. "No, I finish what you started. I expose everything, and if you touch me, if you touch anyone I love, the world will know. All of it. Every crime, every name, every death you tried to bury." For a moment, silence. The air thick with fear, rage, and inevitability. Then Samuel grabbed my hand. "We go now, before reinforcements arrive." I hesitated, eyes on the Montgomerys, reading the cracks in their armor for the first time. They were powerful, yes, but not invincible, not against the truth. I slipped the envelope into my bag, feeling Mama's presence like a warm cloak. "Let's go," I whispered. We bolted out the back, rain-slick streets swallowing us as the first glimmers of dawn broke over the horizon. I realized something profound. For the first time in decades, I was not running in fear. I was running toward justice. The courtroom smelled of paper, polished wood, and tension. I sat at the front, my hands wrapped tightly around the envelope, the last piece of Mama's truth. Samuel leaned beside me, calm and steady, his eyes reflecting the same fire I felt coursing through my veins. Across the room, the Montgomery family sat rigid, their confidence cracked. No amount of money, influence, or intimidation could erase the ledger in my possession. For 73 years, they had hidden behind wealth and fear. But today, nothing could protect them from history. I took a deep breath, feeling Mama's presence in my chest, whispering courage into my heart. "Your Honor," I began, voice trembling but firm. "What you hold here is decades of crimes, corruption, and silenced voices. This isn't just my story. It's a story that belongs to every life that suffered at the hands of the Montgomerys."
The judge nodded, his face grave. "Proceed, Miss Johnson."
I opened the envelope, laying out the papers, names, dates, evidence, while Samuel explained the corroborating witnesses we had found. Each revelation landed like a hammer, dismantling the Montgomerys' carefully constructed walls. Gasps echoed in the courtroom as the magnitude of their actions became undeniable. Richard's face went pale. Mrs. Montgomery's lips pressed into a thin line. Powerless. The same arrogance that had haunted my childhood evaporated in the face of truth. Hours later, the verdict came. Guilty. Every charge upheld. Justice. Not perfect. Not enough to erase the years of fear, but enough to honor Mama. Enough to remind the world that even the smallest silenced voices can rise. As we left the courthouse, sunlight broke through the clouds. I felt 73 years of grief, rage, and endurance lift slightly from my shoulders. Samuel walked beside me, but my mind wandered to the past. Mama's gentle hands, her whispered lessons, the sacrifices she made to protect me, and the truth. That evening, I returned to my small home. The storm had passed. I sat on the porch, cradling Mama's Bible. Tears streamed freely, not from sorrow, but from relief and triumph. For the first time, I felt whole. Justice had been served, but more importantly, the legacy of courage, love, and resistance my mother had left me had not been broken. And as the stars blinked awake in the clear night sky, I whispered softly, "We did it, Mama. We finally did it." The world was still imperfect, still full of shadows, but for one small corner, justice, truth, and light had won. And for the first time in my long, hard life, I felt the quiet satisfaction of peace.